Hi everybody. My name is Sarah Elise and I'm an astrologer in Toronto, Canada. And this is my newsletter on September 28th for our new moon in Libra. And this is going out to my community. Thank you for those of you who are watching. My intention today is to offer you a gift. I'm going to give you something that I've discovered and something that I've been playing with for a little while around Libra, the Libra archetype. So first of all, I'm going to go on a little tangent like usual and describe to you why I believe this is very important in the ecosystem and in the collective right now. So with the coming together of the Saturn and Pluto and South Node in Capricorn this year that we've been talking about, as you know, I've been discussing this for many months. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, and through my observations of what's happening in the collective, we're having a heating up and sort of there's a breaking point around the part of the patriarchal structure that's no longer serving us as a collective on planet Earth. So what we're seeing is parts of our constructed reality, parts of the structure that we have set up in order to keep ourselves safe and secure in society, things like the government, things like the infrastructure of business, the mining industry, and like that makes things that we can create roads with and buildings and energy systems, and all of this stuff is Capricorn, building the world within which we live so that we can come home and nurture our babies and tend to our hearth, which is Cancer, the opposite of Capricorn. So when you have the huge heavy hitter of Pluto coming up against Saturn and the South Node of karmic reckoning, all together in the archetype of Capricorn, from, well, it's been at least about a year now, since I'd say last December, that we started to feel it very, very strongly, but more since April, when we had the closest touch that we will have before January of 2020, when these heavy hitting planets come absolutely conjunct for a glorious week-long party before they go separate again. And then the entire year of 2020 is going to have this theme because Jupiter enters Capricorn as well. But nevertheless, so for this last period of time, if you'll notice and observe what's been going on inside of you and outside of you, you'll see that there is a heating up, right, of the awareness that we have of how wrong things are in the world that we've created. So if you're paying any attention whatsoever, you'll notice that the environment is top of mind, that there are major elections that are happening, and there's a battle between those who would have us stay back and those who would have us deny, and those who would have us stay the same and repress, and those who would take us forward, and then those who are sitting somewhere in the middle trying to appease both sides. So there's this like rumbling where, if you look at it very closely, you'll see, this just quite honestly isn't working. And one of the greatest examples of this that has come up recently is this young woman from Sweden, Greta Thunberg. Now she's like unbelievably beautiful as a human being. I have so much respect for what she's done and what she's capable of, because in her clarity and in her bravery, she's come forward to speak the truth. She's not getting caught inside the paradigm structures or inside the false identification with social rules and norms that the collective gets stuck in all the time. And what I'm talking about is when we buy into a system, and all that the system is something that we have collectively agreed upon living by. When we buy into it, we play by its rules, yeah? And we become invested. Our security becomes invested in it. Our ability to provide for our family becomes invested in it. And our self-identity often becomes invested in it because we don't have the ability to separate ourselves and see ourselves as independent from it. We don't realize that we are the creators of it. We live it out as though it's just an expression of who we are. And so we take it very personally. And so we get threatened when the structure is threatened, right? We get our back up, like our hackles come up and we start to defend ourselves. And we can be very afraid as well of change because we aren't sure what might happen in the future. We don't really know if we have the power to rise up and take charge because we have subjugated our power to the system that we've lived in. And when the system is falling and we don't feel powerful, we freak out. So this is what I think is happening everywhere. And Greta is just this glorious little angel who's come forward like with this flaming sword, and she is she is just speaking truth, right? And she's just going straight to it. She's like, this system isn't working, these new governments are doing nothing, the planet is burning, and we have to wake up. And who can really deny what she's saying, right? It's quite obvious that it's true. However, I'm not going to sit here and deconstruct Greta's facts. I guess my point is that she's giving us she's pointing us in this direction that I want to talk about, which is really relevant for today's new moon, because halfway between Capricorn and Cancer, which is this archetype that we're playing on, like that we're like wrestling in right now as a collective, we're all like trying to take down the structures within ourselves, like the rules and the boundaries and the things we've come to trust that we realize we can't trust anymore. And we're trying to soften, and we're trying to go deeper, and we're trying to really make contact with what matters so that we know what we're fighting for, so we can take control, Saturn, and rebuild this place into something better that's going to nurture and nourish us all, to provide security, Cancer, for our offspring and for ourselves, Cancer. So the Capricorn Cancer axis is what's up on the collective level. Halfway in between Cancer Capricorn, you have the Libra Aries archetype axis. So these are the cardinal points in the zodiac. And today, with the Libra new moon, we actually have the sun and the moon squaring the Saturn-Pluto nodal axis. So it's making a T-square. And it's a wide T-square today. It's like the sun is at 5 degrees and Saturn is at 13. So it's not like and I think the node is at 14. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So it's a wide square today, but as we come into the next week, it's going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. So this is kind of like a perfect jumping off point for this. And what I wanted to do is just like present this idea that relationship and the way we are in relationship to ourself really impacts the society that we're capable of contributing to and being responsible for. When we take responsibility for ourself, and when we are in right relationship with ourself, the self that we bring forward is powerful, aligned, and in integrity. When we're out of relationship with ourself, when we're in a codependent pattern, or when we are afraid of ourself, or when we can't really connect, then we are ego identifying ourself in the external world. So if I have a part of me that doesn't like itself very much, and I don't want to admit that, I can't face my shadow, I can't go in and take a look, I'm going to project it on the outside world. I'm going to project it. I'm going to see people all around me not liking me very much, or I'm going to not like people very much, or somehow my shadow, the shadow from the relationship with myself that I'm unwilling to have or to face into or to take responsibility for, that shadow is going to play out. And one of the really important things as we come into this next cycle is that we all get very clean with ourselves, because just like Greta, if we have to take a stand at some point and really make a choice as to how we're going to be into our future. And the more responsibility for ourselves we can take, and the better the relationship we have within us, the better that future is going to be. Now, okay, so now I'm going to stop for a second, and I'm going to get into the Libra archetype and why I feel like this is just such an extremely important conversation to have with you. And this is also the gift that I want to give you today. Okay, what is relationship? We have two dimensions of relationship, and I've talked to you guys about this before, if some of you might remember. There's a horizontal relationship, which is a relationship that happens between you and the other. And then there's a vertical relationship, which is a relationship that happens between you and the other, right? It's the self and the self, or the self and the self. Now, when we are within our, so when we are overly identified with the horizontal level, we get into kind of codependent relationships, and we get into projection, and we get into all of that stuff I was talking about. When we're not like in a relationship with ourselves primarily, we are taking what is within us and projecting it outwards. So I'm looking to you to get my needs met. I'm looking at you and blaming you for making me feel bad. You know, like there's this dance of drama that happens when we're in relationship with each other. And Libra, though at its best, is just an elegant, beautiful archetype, which is diplomatic and exquisitely peace-loving and harmonious, and always trying to find balance and harmony with that which is around it. It's very artistic. It's very scientific. It loves to please. It's very agreeable. It's very likable. But at its worst, the Libra archetype is superficial and avoids conflict and gives itself away, and is overly accommodating, and oscillates, gets confused, fluctuates because it doesn't know where it lies. It's overly identifying with the environment around it. So you've got these qualities of Libra that happen on the horizontal plane. So the horizontal plane at an essential level is still expressing the relationship that we have with ourselves. It's just expressing it in the external environment. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like we're all here to heal ourselves, right? And we're all here to come home to ourselves. So if you're doing that in the relationship dynamic, okay, great. You're doing it in the relationship dynamic. But at the very least, be aware of what you're doing, because you're creating yourself a miserable life if you blame and shame and project all your shit onto someone else. You're never going to see it in yourself. And that's the place you have to get to in order to come home to you. So it's really important to understand the Libra archetype. I'm a Pluto and Libra generation, so this is like something that I'm here to transform. I take it very serious. It's part of my job in this lifetime, is to transform this archetype. So so I would like to share with you a way that I have done that, okay? And a way that I've come into a relationship with this archetype that I think might be helpful to you guys. Because, it's nice to say, be in a relationship with yourself, or be whole in yourself, or love yourself. And it's all lovely, it's great, but how? Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you actually come in to a relationship with yourself? And so let's look at it. Within the self, we have a masculine and we have a feminine archetype. Okay, so the feminine, I tend to associate with the left side of the body and the right brain. So she comes up the left leg and she crisscrosses over here. The masculine archetype comes up the right leg and crisscrosses over here. So we've got the analytical didactic brain. We've got the creative, more metaphorical or expansive brain. And these archetypes within us merge and blend, and they come into perfect harmony. That is, and then if that is the case, if we have this beautiful merging and this balance of our feminine and masculine archetypes within our body, so if the feminine is coming up from the earth and the masculine is coming down from the heavens, and there's this flow up and down the spine, what happens is all of our chakras are able to open. We're able to access higher consciousness. We're able to access higher self. It's pretty preliminary to stepping into you, is coming into this harmonious balance between the masculine and feminine within your structure. And what's going on right now with this Capricorn Cancer archetype axis is, Capricorn represents the masculine and Cancer represents the feminine. And so we're all being faced with how the masculine and feminine dance has been broken because of the patriarchy for thousands of years. And we're looking at the ramifications and trying to take it apart and figure out a new way to be that honors a healthy feminine and a healthy masculine. And this is the Libra part of this dynamic. This is the T-square with Libra and the T-square with Aries. We'll get to the Aries later. So how do we come into right relationship with our masculine and feminine? And how do we come into right relationship with each other as masculine and feminine archetypes? That's a big question, right? Like, and I've been working on this for a long time now. Well, not a long time, but this came through very clearly about a year and a half ago. I was lying in bed. It was the middle of the night. And this is another one of my Neptune opposite the sun woo-woo experiences, which I receive gratefully and then would love to pass on so that they can be helpful to others. So I'm lying in my bed at night and I wake up at about 2 a.m. and no word of a lie, I'm lying there and I have a body on my left and a body on my right. It's like these two beings are lying on top of me energetically. I can almost see them. They're like, they have form. And I was like, I'm used to sort of strange things happening to me. So I breathed, I was curious, and I relaxed, and I went into this experience. It was like more of like a shamanic experience. And I realized that on the left side was my feminine, and on the right side was my masculine. And I associated it astrologically with my Venus and with my Mars. Because in the birth chart, we have the Venus, which is the feminine quality, and the Mars, which is the masculine quality. And I spent the next couple of hours lying in bed, exploring these two parts of me and having conversations with them. Asking them questions, taking a look at them, understanding where their wounding was, how they were shaped energetically, emotionally, mentally, what was their history, why were they the way they were, how were they interacting with each other, where were they getting stuck. I realized that my feminine, my Venus in Cancer, and which has Saturn in Cancer conjunct, just like Donald Trump, he has Venus and Saturn conjunct in Cancer. My Venus, my feminine, was broken. Like she was so weak. She felt like she was a will-o'-the-wisp. She had no vital energy. She had been squeezed. She had had the life just like ripped out of her. And she was so, it felt like when your muscles don't get activated for a really long time, they atrophy. She was atrophied. My male side, Mars in Aries, a warrior and very aggressive, opposite Pluto in my chart, had somehow figured out how to protect her because he wanted to take care of her, and he had curled his way across. I could feel the shield that he was providing, that he was not letting anything in to get her. She was deep inside and she was very, very weak. And I could feel the associative place in my right hip, which had come out of alignment. And I've been working on this hip issue for a few years now, but this was the first time that I understood what it was in my own structure, in my own archetype. Like I understood what it was multidimensionally. So I understood what was happening at an energetic archetypal level in my body. And it was the masculine coming over and trying to protect or control the feminine. There was nothing malicious in his behavior. It was simply a reaction to the fact that she was not powerful and that he perceived that she needed a break, that she needed repose, that she needed to be taken care of. When in fact, after this long conversation that I had with her, she clearly stated that she was tired of this and that she wanted to come forward and become powerful again, that she needed to spread her wings, that she needed to feel the sunlight on her body, that she needed to breathe the fresh air, that she was tired of being subjugated and held back. So given that I'm a 12th house sun and I experience reality on a collective level, and that my function in this lifetime, like very clearly, is to be a channel for collective energy and to just simply be of service here and share what I'm perceiving, I believe that this archetypal presentation within me is also happening within many, 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 many of us. In fact, probably all of us, because I am just one tiny, tiny fragment of this whole big body that we are. So what I'm saying essentially is that I think we're all dealing with this shit. We're all dealing with this. We're all dealing with the ramifications of what the patriarchy has done to the feminine quality within all of us. And the earth is the perfect example of the feminine, the archetypal feminine, the bowl of creation, and the way we objectify and destroy her with no thought for the consequences is an out of control masculine who has lost touch with his feminine. Like so when the masculine is not free When the feminine is disempowered, okay, so the feminine is disempowered and the masculine and feminine gets entangled in this way that overly empowers the masculine because the feminine isn't stepping into her power, he then goes a little crazy. This is when we have war. This is when we have violence. This is when we have rape. This is when we have subjugation. This is when we have destruction. This is when we have rampant greed. This is when we have a lot of the out of control masculine control, competition, all of this stuff, because she's not holding her own. She's not holding her space, and he doesn't know how she feels. He doesn't understand the emotion. He can't conceive of that level of reality. She's squished, right? And not only that, but in order to survive, she's had to stay squished, because in thousands of years it's been that women have not been able to survive on this planet without a man. Thousands of years. Women have been property. Thousands of years. The only way that you could survive was if you were a wife, a prostitute, or a nun. There was no other option, or a widow, or a mate. Like if you didn't get married, you'd essentially you had no opportunity to have a life, right? And unless you were taken care of charitably by a sibling or by your parents or something like that. Anyway, it's been bleak, and we're dealing with that now. And I believe, and very, very strongly, that the way through this whole mess is the rebalancing of our masculine and feminine polarities, so that within us, both of them are strong, both of them are whole. And this is when the Libra comes into balance, when the relationship within ourself is balanced, right? Then we are in balance. So when the relationship within ourselves is out of balance, right? When the feminine is weak, the masculine has to get stronger. Yeah. When the feminine is tyrannical, the masculine kind of shrinks back. Like, it goes both ways. But and I'm not suggesting that the feminine has to become tyrannical. What I am suggesting is that we all have to raise into our authentic power and our sovereignty and balance within ourselves, so that we can contribute to building a collective that is in balance and that is respectful and that helps all of us survive here, as we're really down to the line. So what I wanted to do today is introduce an exercise to you that I call the divine marriage. And this was another thing that happened to me on the winter solstice. It's a really powerful thing I went through. It was like an initiation, and we can all go through it. First of all, I want you to take some time with your birth chart, okay? Look at your birth chart, pull it up on astro.com, send me an email and ask, what's my Venus and my Mars? I'll help you, okay? Take a look at where your Venus is and what archetype she's in, and take a look at your Mars and what archetype he is in. And this is your archetypal masculine and feminine quality. I mean, this is very simplistic, right? There's more to it than this. There are aspects, there are conjunctions, there is the house and the position that these planets fall into. If you want to do a full reading and you want to actually learn about this and have a conversation, I was thinking to maybe do an offer this month for the month of Libra of sort of an archetypal marriage reading, and do a bit of a discount on it. Maybe like throw it out there for like $150 or something like that. So if anybody is interested in that, please get in touch with me, and we'll go into your archetypes and we'll piece it out for you so that you can do this for yourself, okay? But anyway, I'm just gonna leave that. That's not the intention of this newsletter. I'm not selling you anything. Okay, so take a look at your Venus and take a look at your Mars, and spend some time researching the qualities of each. And then asking yourself, how in myself and in my life does this feel? How do I resonate with this? Where does this come forward? And do some exploration. Now, the next thing that I would have you do is create an avatar for both. So create literally a body, create the way they look, create a voice, create a character, create a scene. Imagine that this Venusian energy and this Mars energy, Martian energy is real, and that they are entities unto themselves, and they're separate than you, but that they are expressing you. So they are extensions of you, okay? They're like line extensions. So create the avatars of these two characters. Now, what I'm telling you now is something that I did, like I was saying, on the winter solstice. It was very, very powerful. So I created an avatar of my Mars and my Venus, and in a deep meditation, I had them meet. So you just do this in your visual field. You sit down, you lie down, make yourself totally comfortable, and have your male and your female meet each other. Imagine how they would react to each other. Imagine if you had, a Venus in Cancer meet a Mars in Aries. Like, what would that feel like? Mine, like, they didn't really get along at first. He was a little extreme. Like, he was quite independent. He just wanted to run away and like climb a mountain, like he was just totally free, and he was very aggro. She was really soft and kind of homey and really nurturing. And he was like, he didn't quite trust her, and she didn't quite get him either. She thought he was had a little bit of a bravado going on. Like he was a little, abrasive. So it took him some time, but over time, I allowed him to start to see the beauty of her. And I allowed her to start to react to his appraisal and to his appreciation, because the feminine wants to be adored and the masculine needs to present in that way. The feminine presents and then the masculine responds, right? He's attracted, he comes in, and then the dance becomes like this beautiful yin yang, this dance of equality. But it took them a little while, and they kind of dated, and you can imagine your own masculine and feminine having this relationship and having conversations. And I went through this whole exercise. Like I imagined them having a fight and the things that they would fight about, and how they would resolve the fight, and what they had to do inside of themselves to come to resolution. And they continually like got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, until finally, and it took a really long time for him to decide this, because he was like super independent. He finally made the decision to love her. And she was kind of there way earlier than he was. and as is generally the case with women. But when he finally made the choice and felt like he wasn't going to get squished or trapped, and he came in to love her, it was unbelievable. And like this whole thing was happening inside myself, with myself. Like, this is my internal marriage that's going on. This has nothing to do with anybody else. This is me, my archetypes, right? And my own like me trying to bring these two parts of me into balance. And so I allowed them to fall in love. I have to say, I'm just going to be frank, I had them make love with each other, which was kind of fun. And then I actually had him propose to her. Again, it was the most unbelievably beautiful experience I've ever had in my life. And, I'm going through a dissolution of a very painful marriage. And I remember this proposal on the inner plane was more profound than anything I've ever experienced in real life. Let me just put it that way. So, it was quite lovely. And when he proposed and she received and she accepted, then I elevated. So at that point, I asked my higher self and I asked source energy to come in and bless their union. And this beautiful golden light just came right through me and surrounded them. And it was sanctified. It became a holy thing. And then I reunified them into my body. So I brought them back into me. And I did the exercise. I brought them back in. I brought them all the way down to the feet. I felt them come back into each side of my body. And I felt them settle back into myself, in union with the divine, in union with each other. And I swear to God, since December of 2018, when I went through this whole thing, I've come into a completely different understanding of relationship and why it's here and what it's for. It's not to be afraid of a relationship, but relationships are like serious business. And when we harm ourselves and when we harm each other in relationship, it's always a sign that there needs to be a return to you, that the relationship that needs fixing is the one inside yourself. And if you're in an abusive relationship, for instance, there is something within you that's keeping you there. There is something in you that's holding you back from saying no And that is just as important as if you are an abuser in a relationship, or if you experience jealousy, or if you hurt people that you love. What? Why does this have to happen? Like, it doesn't have to happen. This is not how relationships should be. Relationships should be very loving and peaceful and collaborative and co-creative and enjoyable. And everybody should be able to feel like they can be themselves and that they can be free and that there is no one trying to squish them or hurt them or criticize them. And it requires an enormous amount of responsibility for yourself and awareness of yourself to create that kind of a relationship. But I don't see why we all shouldn't want that. Isn't that the ideal? So anyway, I am sharing with you this example of this sort of inner divine marriage with hopes that it might inspire you on this Libra new moon day to perhaps do a meditation about it. Like just use it. And maybe because it is a new moon today, and on a new moon we set our intent and we plant our seeds. We start something new. Maybe today some of you might find this an inspiring way to set some intentions for yourself. You know, instead of focusing all your energy on what's wrong externally to you, perhaps it's a good opportunity to come back in and start to look at where the opportunities are for you to heal within yourself and to just come into a deeper state of balance and alignment with yourself so that you can create a relationship on the external that feels better for you. And, you know, anyway, I'm going to stop because I will keep going and going and going and going like a double Gemini. I hope this is helpful, and I hope this wasn't too long. I'm going to leave it there. Good luck, everybody. And we may see you in 2 weeks at the Aries full moon, or we might see you in a month at the next new moon. God bless you, and I'm so grateful for your time and attention. Bye-bye.